see you all here. Amazing. Thank you. So welcome everybody. To those of you who may have joined later or will be watching the recording, this is the International Hope Series Screening and Forum happening on October 13th, 2025. And we have just watched the episode 2, The Power of Two Words, featuring the transition movement, guided by Rob Hopkins. And I am Esther Molina, Transition Network International Communications Lead Link, and your host today. And we're about to start the panel Q&A and the conversation with you all. But first of all, deep gratitude to you all just deciding to connect today to watch this episode and connect with these amazing people changing the world. And thank you so much to the speakers, Javier, Rob, and Filipa. I know how busy you are and how demanded your presence and requested this. So thank you so much to take some time to share with us. Yeah, and without further ado, I will start sharing about our guests and then the questions. So for those of you who don't know them, I can tell you that Javier Peña is the founder of Hope, a communication project focused on regeneration with over 1 billion views, creator of the documentary series Hope, We Still Have Time, featuring regenerative solutions from 19 countries, and co-founder of the Regeneration Alliance with Paul Hocken, who you could watch in the episode as well. We have, well, welcome Javier. It's so good to have you with us. Thanks for making it.
Thank you so much, Esther. Very excited to be here with all you.
Thank you. Thank you, Javier. We have also with us Filipa Pimentel. Filipa has been a core team member of Transition Network International since 2011, exploring with people all over the world how to develop social infrastructure and collaborative culture needed for a global movement for social change. She currently holds the roles of governance, collaborations, and engagement lead link, and is an accredited facilitator in sociocracy by Sociocracy for All and in shared governance by the Université du Nord. Welcome, Filipa, and thank you for making time to being with all of us. I think you are over there. I don't see you. There you are.
Estoy aquí.
Thank you for making it.
Muchas gracias. Thank you so much, Esther.
Thank you. And then we have also Rob Hopkins. Rob is the co-founder of the Transition Network International, the Transition Movement, and of Transition Town Totness, and author of several books, which most of you will have read, from including the Transition Handbook, From What Is to What If, Unleashing the Power of Imagination to Create the Future We Want. And he has spoken at TED Global, TEDx events, and appears in the French film Phenomenon Demand. He has been our guide for this second episode of Hope. And he holds a PhD from the University of Plymouth, as well as 2 honoris causas, and hosted 100 episodes of his podcast, From What Is to What Next. And he was made an honorary citizen of Liège in Belgium, 2022. And his collaborative music project, Amazing Work with artist Mr. Kit, Field Recordings from the Future, was released this May 2025, the same time as his new book, How to Fall in Love with the Future, that I bet most of you also have really close to you. Thank you so much, Rob, for being with us today.
Yes, thank you. Lovely to see you all. Thank you for coming, and I hope you enjoyed that wonderful gift that Javier has given us. Yeah, lovely to see you all.
Thank you, Rob. And a shout out to everybody who has contributed, because Javier has been like the main creator, but I'm aware that El Gato Verde producers have been also supporting us a lot and been doing an amazing work. And everybody working on the documentary, I can't imagine how many people have been there supporting all this necessary work nowadays. So thank you as well. Let's start with the questions. I have prepared some questions for you. And I'm going to ask you to be really aware of time and pace. We have the interpreters speaking in other languages, so please be aware of that. And I will keep an eye on time, and if you take a bit more than 2 minutes, I will start dancing. Like, I will start doing like this. And I'm inviting everybody who is not speaking to join the dance party if you want. So the speaker will have it easier and funnier to understand that their time is coming to an end. So this will be very helpful and funny, I hope. So let's begin with the questions then. if
So we will
everything's
make it
clear.
on purpose that you dance. Is that the?
Yeah. The idea is that if you are
I understand,
taking more
but
time.
I will want to see you dance. I will make it on purpose.
Okay. I guess it will happen. No worries. Or we can make a test. Let's see. Somebody is taking a lot of time and they need to stop talking to share the time with others. Okay. You got it. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. So let's start with a simple but powerful question for all of you, to all the panelists. And if you feel called to answer that also on the Zoom chat as a participant, you're more than welcome to do so. And the question is, what is one thing, perhaps a word, an image, or a recent experience that gives you hope today? So what gives you hope today? Would love to know. And maybe we can start with Javier. Meanwhile, people share on the Zoom chat. Javier, what gives you hope today?
I find hope in this army of pioneers changing the world and showing us that another future is possible, and also in the latest science that I am profundizing a lot now about how landscapes and water can have a very significant effect on how we experience the new climate and on how we can cool down entire regions and fix the water cycle through regeneration, through landscape regeneration. And that's I knew about that, but I understanding the magnitude of that possibility to actually give us some tools and hope to keep moving forward and change things not in decades but in years, and that time scale is very encouraging for me. Yeah.
Thank you, Javier. I am going to share very quickly a couple of things from the chat as well. I see from Mel, collaboration, community. I see from Vivian Antoni, hope from archaeology, deep history. ABG, human common sense, inspirational individuals. Brian, acting together. Johannes, connecting to you all and the feeling of belonging to this movement. Liz, collective wisdom, and more things coming over there. And I'm going to ask Filipa, in a sentence, in a word, what gives you hope today?
I will not follow the word thing, but in a sentence, for me, there are two things. One is resonant with others. When there is something about the same kind of energy that comes from another person, the same energy that connects us. It's something very inspiring. The other thing is stories. This kind of documentary inspires me. And when I came into Transition Network, the stories that Rob told was something that inspired me to change all my life at the time. And Rob shares a quote from William Gibson in his presentations that says, "The future is already here. It is just not evenly distributed." That is what inspires me.
Thank you so much, Filipa. Beautiful. And what about you, Rob? What
I
gives you hope?
think for me, I remember in the run up to the last election in the UK, one of the Labour MPs said, "The only thing worse than no hope is false hope." And I remember thinking, really? Are those the only two choices? that you're putting out for us. How about some hope? Maybe is that a bit too much to ask? And although I don't want to, I'm there's not a party political point to be made, but I have really enjoyed in the last few weeks seeing the new leader of the Green Party in the UK and how he has been talking about the politics of hope and very explicitly talking about hope and how that seems to have caught fire with people who are just so tired of politicians who just offer the same over and over and over again. And to have someone talking about hope and reimagining things and doing things differently seems to be really inspiring people and a lot of young people as well. So that's what's giving me hope is to beginning to see hope back in the political narrative, I think, and inspiring young people again.
Wow, thank you, Rob. Thank you so much. And thanks all who keep sharing on the Zoom chat. It's really inspiring as well. And we move forward with the other questions. I have a question for Javier. Your work documents regenerative solutions globally. And from that bird's eye view, you've seen countless transition and grassroots initiatives that have achieved remarkable, tangible impact. What, in your observation, are the common ingredients or key factors that allow these communities to turn their wisdom and tools into real-world success?
Courage. Like they really want something a lot of people love about that and say that's impossible, that's stupid, that's not gonna happen, but they resist and push forward and make the impossible possible. And that kind of persistency of like Christiana Figueres says, stubborn optimism, it's a common ingredient. They really want to make that happen and they move mountains to make that happen and they make it happen. So that's a common ingredient.
Courage, amazing. Thank you. And I bet most of people in the room have a lot of courage here. And I see more interesting comments in there. We will have to do something and compile all the comments you've been sharing. Maybe we can write an article and include what you are sharing as well. But later we will have some time to ask questions to the panel as well. But now, Rob, this question is for you. Drawing on your journey from the very beginning, how would you describe the quality of hope that launched the transition movement around 20 years ago? And how does it compare to the hope that we need to cultivate today? And in our current, often polarized climate discourse, what is the specific role of hope when facing the rise of authoritarian easy fix narratives, quote unquote?
I think that the quality of hope that we have always tried to model in the transition movement is a kind of a grounded hope. There's different kinds of hope, I think. There's sort of passive, I hope that, and then there's a more engaged, I hope too. Like I'm going to do something. There's a beautiful, I mean, Javier says in the beginning of the film, the greatest threat to humanity is the loss of hope. And I feel like that really links into your question about the rise of fascism, which I'll talk about in a moment. But Rebecca Solnit, who for me is one of the best writers on hope, she once said, "Hope is not a lottery ticket you can sit on the sofa and clutch, feeling lucky. Hope is an axe you break down doors with in an emergency. To hope is to give yourself the future, and that commitment to the future is what makes the present inhabitable." So for me, transition has always been really rooted in a practical commitment to to doing something. Like the hope arises, for me, the hope arises from starting things and going to see things that people inspired by transition have done. For me, it's why the film that you've just watched it feels so powerful, because it tells the story of 5 people inspired by transition sitting around a table in Liège and saying, should we do it then? Yeah, let's do it. And that everywhere I go, I tell that story. You mentioned that the mayor of Liège made me an honorary citizen of Liège, and when he gave me a medal, and I said, oh, thank you very much. Can I have my British citizenship back as well, please? And he said, "Oh, I'm afraid that's not within my powers." But he said basically, you have become like an ambassador for our city, because everywhere you go, you tell everyone how amazing Liège is. And before that, everybody wasn't that excited about Liège, really. So for me, it's like the hope comes from the stories of people deciding not to sit on the sofa anymore, but to pick up that axe and to use it. And what happens is that that fascism feeds on hopelessness. And the more that we can be putting stories out about what's possible, examples of that, that's how we tackle that, because they paint terrifying visions of the future and then offer themselves as the strong protectors from that nonsense vision of the future that they have portrayed. And actually, if we can tell more compelling, thrilling, delicious stories about how the future could be in a way that feel relevant to people's lives and making them better, that's where the hope comes in. And that's the best way to address the rise of the far right, I think.
Thank you so much, Rob. Really interesting, this distinction between types of hope. And I see some comments in the Zoom chat, and I wanted to honor and bring also and name that sometimes we are lacking hope, and some days we are feeling terrible given the state of the world. And just acknowledging that this happens sometimes, and that some people maybe have lost hope, and some people some days don't have hope, and then the next hour they feel hopeful because something happens. And we also sometimes like fluctuate. Hope is not linear or always existing for us. Just acknowledging that this is also real, and honoring the different ways of experiencing and feeling hope in our lives. Yeah, that felt important to name. And now a question for Filipa. With your deep involvement in the movement's structure and culture, I'd really love your perspective. Among the many groups working on the climate action today, what would you say is transition's unique position? What is the core value or approach that it brings to the table that might be missing elsewhere?
Well, there are a lot of elements that could, make it different from other movements or other organizations. Even if I think that it is difficult to draw a membrane around the movement, and what is outside of the movement or not is really difficult, because one of the characteristics is that there is so much diversity. But one thing that is clear, it's like, imagine a lab of change in which communities all over the world are trying things, and we are connected all together. So creating these stories and creating these kind of stories that are not evenly distributed, but we are connecting it to support each other. I think this is one of the most important or the most powerful characteristics of the movement. And it's at a level of community, in this kind of small stories that where you have the power, and you can use that power to change in your context and tell that story and influence, the what is happening in other levels at global level. I think that stories about practical things, like Rob said, the creativity, the imagination, that is part of our DNA. And just coming back to the hope, I really like the active hope thing. expression and concept. This active hope that the movement we learn when we talk about the principles of the movement, it's not being pessimistic or optimistic, is this active hope, and that we really try to develop with all the tools of inner transition and supporting each other. And you know, it's there is something that is missing in some places where you have this very extreme now what is happening in the world is lack of empathy, I think. And the movement there, it's really central to the movement to connect with each other in a human scale and working with difference and having these collaborations and bridging different opinions, all that. I think it's very holistic, this kind of movement. And in practice, projects could be about everything, you know, because there is something that is, I find it very interesting, you know. I work at international level, but I work a lot in my own country. And I see in my country, that's Portugal, that I observe a lot people debating forever in the social networks, but not only, about what is the right or the what is the key for change, you know, what is the right strategy. There is none. I mean, we should be trying everything, you know, using our skills, our inspiration, our hope, our context, and making it happen and connecting to each other and supporting each other doing that. So I think this is one of the key principles of inner transition, understanding how I contribute to change or not, and doing all that work. Yeah, I could stay forever talking. I don't see you dance. So
We can dance if you want.
I want. So, but the craziness and the creativity and the fun, there is something that is very important, is the fun, no, Rob? If it's not, there is the Brazilian, Melissa, I see you there. The Brazilian are always reminding, if it's not fun, it's not transition.
That's a good reminder. Yeah, thank you, Filipa. Thank you so much. And I have one last question, and then we'll open the round to the audience, to the participants. And just to build a bit on a couple of things you just mentioned, all of you. And it's a question that I would like to ask to all the panel. And maybe we can follow the same order of intervention. And the thing is, we're seeing very complex challenges being met with, or trying to be met with, very simplistic and authoritarian answers, as we just mentioned. And so the question would be, what is the most important thing that movements like transition need to do or show to make our alternatives feel not just positive, inspirational, but also truly viable, compelling, and necessary? Or how do we translate the hope that we feel into action that people and policymakers can't ignore? So instead of being this, oh, look at these funny, nice people doing interesting and inspiring things, oh no, this is the way. Like, this is the way we move forward together doing this kind of stuff. Like, how do we translate and get to the people with this message and create these ripples of action? And you already mentioned some ideas, but let's build into that. I think it's really interesting. Can be very helpful. So Javier, over to you.
Well, I can guess some ideas that I am trying to use, you know, like one one famous progressive journalist of Spain said recently that he had lost hope because the only ones that looked into the future with a positive future with energy and enthusiasm was the people who wanted to go back to the past. And that lack of alternative made him feel hopelessness, no? And I think one of the most crucial tasks is to really draw a compelling and um, uh, clear vision of the future we can actually achieve, and to create a unifying narrative where everyone can picture their themselves and really, as Rob says, long for that future that we can achieve. No, and I think one key task that breaks a lot of mm, division and breaks the polarization is to go down to the actual changes that we want to do. And because there is this paradox that we actually have an incredible toolbox of solutions that are win 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 win, like Rob says in the episode, that actually create a better future for almost everyone. And how can we lose if we have that? No, how can we lose hope? And one thing that I think is very important is to try to make things happen, to try solutions to be made accessible and easy to replicate and get people involved. And well, okay, and that to go to the concrete things, that will be my advice. Okay, on my guess.
Thank you so much, Javier. Thank you. And what does Rob says to that?
I think that we need to get much better at showing how the things that we have learned from this nearly 20-year experiment of transition, but also from the community renewables movement, the permaculture movement, all these different experiments going on in so many different places, what they show us about a more holistic approach and thinking more holistically. So, for example, uh, in the film you see about cycling in the Netherlands. The Dutch government's philosophy is that they spend €500 million every year building really great cycling infrastructure because they know that it saves them €19 billion off the national health bill. So it's not an expense, it's an investment in health and well-being. Now you can apply the same thing to so many different things. I remember research about local currency that said that if people went shopping with local currency, they had 20 or 30 conversations. If they went shopping with a plastic card, they had none. So in terms of, maybe we need to start looking at cycling infrastructure, providing homes for people, local currencies as part of a citywide mental health strategy, rather than just saying we do mental health policy over here, we do housing policy over here, we do food policy over here. If we start to connect these things and join them up with a philosophy of decarbonizing at the same time as we're making sure money and resources circulate as many times within that place as possible, when we start thinking in a more joined up way, I think that's really important. I also think that the way we talk about the future, like you wouldn't be surprised from the book that I just did, we have to help people to fall in love with the future, and we have to get much better at the skills of cultivating longing. I was just on a call with someone who told me that in the 60s there was a comic book that was made about Martin Luther King that was called Martin Luther King the Story or something, and it was translated into hundreds of languages and was used by revolutionary movements all around the world. We need those tools that help people think about the future in different ways that are accessible, that are fun. That if we just talk about collapse and extinction all the time, and if we just talk about everything that's broken, it doesn't mobilize anybody. People just get caught like rabbits in the headlights. We have to, the people who are brilliant in our culture at cultivating longing are writers and poets and musicians, and we need to learn skills from them as well, I think.
Thank you, Rob. I was about to start dancing.
I could see.
Thank you. Thanks for all the care with the time. And now over to Filipa. What would you like to say?
Thank you. I really agree what was said already. So the part of the data, we have been a movement that is for a long part of the time that is there, very, very organic, and we just don't wait. We just put together things and start working and have celebration and so on. It is important data, like Rob said, and we need to be smart in saying, what this means, what is the impact of this. But a part of that, I want to complement instead of repeating. I think that there is something about changing perception of reality in the way that we tell stories, right? And it's not only when we go and talk with the big power. I think that we all have a certain profile, and we should create this, we talked about mycelium, this kind of mycelium that connects us all in the ground area, but in all levels. So you create this kind of, how can I say this? Wait, let me say this in another way. The stories that we are telling, we should tell at all levels, right? At the same time, we should be all connected. One of the things that happens with this kind of polarization is division. So, and I think that what we need to learn is really to connect as mycelium. Mycelium does that with forests, for example. You connect all the plants. We need to learn how to do that and to support each other like that. And that kind of conversation and posture in connection needs to become normal. And these stories need to become normal and possible. So that the stories of hope are really present and not only the stories of desperation. Even if we need to live with the desperation as well. Am I clear?
I think so, yeah. Thank you, Filipa, and thank you all. Interconnectedness keeps resonating in me after your sharings, the importance of interconnectedness. Okay, so thanks for answering these questions. And now we can open the word, like all of you can ask. Feel free to pop up your question in the Zoom chat or raise your virtual hand if possible, if you want to speak, opening the mic, and I will say your name and you can ask the question. You can ask in general for all the members of the panel, and whoever who feels the most inspired can answer. Or if you want to speak directly to any of the guest speakers, you can also say to whom is the question directed. And we have almost 20 minutes for this. This is an amazing opportunity. We have Filipa, Rob, and Javier in the same online room. Take this opportunity.
Sure.
Brian from Dorset.
I've got a question for you panelists. In the film Impact, there's a lady who's at Malmö University, and she says she's done a study on the psychology, and she said we all have to change our mindset. So how do you go around changing people's mindset to transition?
It's Brian who would like to respond to that.
Shall I start with that one? I mean, I guess that's kind of been my job for the last 19 years or something, and many other people's. I think that partly what we've been talking about before is that we share stories of things that are already happening in such a way that people can imagine themselves in those stories as well. So it's not like, some rarefied project done by some organization. It's like people organizing. It's what's so powerful in the program you've just watched. I think that's just 5 ordinary people in Liège who were inspired with an idea and who got started with it. I think there's something about giving people, like a lot of the tools that we use in transition, like open space and World Cafe and things like Town Anywhere and these kind of very participatory, like citizens' assemblies even, where people self-organize and the way those events are facilitated mean that people who have always wanted to do something come along and meet other people who share that enthusiasm. I remember, if you look back to the very beginning of Transition Town Totnes, the first open space event we did on food, most of those projects have gone on that were suggested on that event that went on to happen, because in that event people met the other people who had also, like them, been thinking somebody really should make a garden down there, but had never met the other people. So making those opportunities for people to come together. And transition, I think, creates the idea with transition is that you then create a support structure in the community that then when people go, oh, well, we'd love to create that project, but we don't have a bank account or we don't have a website, or, the transition provides that. The transition creates the infrastructure that supports people to step up from something just being an idea or being an inspiration into them actually making something real. And then when you have the experience of starting something and you've seen that made a difference, then that gives people courage to take further steps in. That would be my sense of that.
Thank you, Rob.
Great question.
Yeah.
Shall I go next, Esther?
So,
Well, I totally agree with Rob. I would complement it with my own examples of experience. I think the whole system, the current system or the mainstream has certain characteristics or certain narratives that uses in a way that creates the impression that we alone, or I'm Filipa in my place, I don't have power. So it's the creation of the sensation of powerless. Everything that you can do to create, to show the opposite, it helps changing a mindset, everything, giving resources, telling stories, creating moments where you can, the inner transition tools of creating spaces for you to connect with others in a very deep level, or to express desperation or anger, or, to go through all these, to have the spaces for all that, and then to step up and do something that shows you that finally you are not powerless. I think it's very, very transformative, because I really think that the status quo is maintained by giving the impression that you don't have any power to change stuff. So that's my answer.
yeah. Thank you, Filipa. Yeah. And how important it is to embody the change that we want to see. And this allows others to see other people doing things in a different way. And then you start to question how you do things, and maybe you start researching and you implement some changes and connect to these people doing things differently. And it's kind of a ripple wave effect. I don't know if Javier, you would like to add anything, or we can move on to the next questions. I see a lot of them popping in, which is great. How do you feel?
We can move on. I think
Okay.
all what had to be said was said by Rob and Filipa.
Okay, let's see. What do we have? Next question is from Mats. He said, I sometimes think of imagination as a muscle that's weakened, not because we've lost the ability, but because we've lost both the time and the space to use it, especially in our workplaces. I'm curious what you've seen actually help organizations to rebuild that imaginative capacity inside systems that are often driven by pressure, targets, and short-term thinking. Who wants to answer that?
Nobody? I'm joking. I'm sure that Rob has an answer.
Do you want to? You don't want to say something first, Filipa?
I have facilitated imagination tools in companies and organizations, and it is amazing when it happens. I think that the process that started to the process is really to question about what is work, why would not be a creative imagination process be part of work? On the opposite, that's fantastic. It is super productive. So why not just learn the tools and to embed it in the work? You need to have a different concept. You have to stop running in panic. That's true. But I've seen things done in amazing ways with a lot of results. And in schools, I started to work with kids, with teenagers in school about that. That is amazing how when it happens, because they don't have spaces for that. It's really shocking in certain schools, not in all schools, but how I would bring it is really to create moments where that you embed as part of their work.
I would add that I would point people to the work that Phoebe Tickell does at Moral Imaginations, where she has developed what she calls imagination activist training that she does with local authorities, with businesses, where she goes in and has like half a day a week for 8 weeks, and she uses that with key members of staff to build exactly the like you say, Mads, the imaginative muscle. But then she also builds a kind of imagination infrastructure within that organization. So you have then a cohort of people within the organization who support each other going forwards, so that if someone says, "Oh, what a ridiculous idea," you don't go, "Oh, I'm terribly sorry. I'll go away and come back with a more sensible one." You say, "Oh, thank you very much. I've got plenty more where that came from." And other people say, "Yes, that's fantastic." And she's done that with a lot of different organizations now. And there's also there's a story in How to Fall in Love with the Future about an organization within the United Nations who are called UN Global Pulse, who are working to try and expand the imaginative muscle within the United Nations. Very, very large, very bureaucratic organization. And they have beautiful, and I don't have a copy of the book here next to me, but they have 5 suggestions that they make for how you can bring more imagination into an organization. One of those that I remember is to embed artists in the organization and to have events where you just invite in a whole lot of different people. When you've got to make big decisions, have a chef there and an architect and a teenager and a footballer and whatever, like broaden the people who are in the space. But I think fundamentally, like one of the realizations for me when I wrote From What Is to What If was that the imagination needs space. You have to give the imagination space. If we don't give imagination space, every organization will just carry on doing what it always did. When Dr. Seuss wrote the book A Cat in the Hat, he said that the challenge of writing a book with a palette of just 50 words was the best exercise his imagination ever had. So something like donut economics, which is so brilliant because it says this is the space within which you have to innovate. Can't go that way. You can't go that way. It identifies the sweet spot and then says, be brilliant. We know you can be brilliant. Be brilliant. So for me, it's like we have to identify those limits, but there are tools and practices that you can use within organizations to expand the imagination.
Yeah, thank you so much. Wow. I just noticed there's a question that fits Javier very well on your role of really communicating about climate and solutions and action in a very good way. And Johannes says, I wonder how to connect most efficiently. How do we beat the algorithms and flood the zone with positive stories?
Yeah, that's what I ask myself every day. Every day I have to make a video in social media, but I have had a like a lab on that because I have been doing a lot of tests on 2 videos a week for 7 years, more or one a week, short videos, and what I have learned is that when you use you put yourself on others people's mind who are watching, scrolling, and you try to show something that they understand in the first 5 seconds, and ask a question and try to say something relevant in that short period of time that you have. And then when you use non-divisive language and non jargon of ecologism or science language, you can really touch a really big audience. And also, when you show examples of people getting the benefits of doing regeneration or being pioneers in something, the polarization disappears and excitement takes its place. And when you are only talking about the world of the ideas and the musts and the urgencies and all the ammunition of the deniers side takes the place, and it's a war of intellectual hate or that kind of thing. And when you go to the root and show the good that you can obtain with a new way of doing things, it can be widespread. Some videos have had like 50 million views and being shared by people of all um, mm, ideologies and through WhatsApp, and it's like it didn't trigger any barrier of, oh, this is leftist, or this is radical ecologism, or this is, I don't know. It was plain language showing something positive, and I think that's the way I try to make it.
Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah. I hope that's inspiring and helpful for all. Yeah, just a side note that soon we will be sharing on the Transition website, Transition Network website and newsletter, some news about narrative hacking tools and methodologies that we've been learning through Culture Hack Labs, a fellowship that we won a spot in there. So news will be coming about it. And I spotted also a question from several people really interested in this, wondering about if it's not too late for us to only act on a local level, that it needs to change on a political level now to have a bigger impact. I feel like we are running out of time. Thank you. So maybe it's a question on where is best to act, on which kind of level should we put our attention or diversify, or what to do with that. And I see Rob already wants to answer.
Well, thank you. I don't think it's either or really, and I think the reality is that it's not a choice that we have to make. It's like we can be active in our own community. You know, I know lots of people who are very involved in transition, who've also been very involved in Extinction Rebellion, trying to push kind of national policy, who are maybe also councillors, who are involved, who are also members of political parties. You know, I feel like we don't need to choose one thing or another thing. You know, for me, I feel like we have to at this point we have to go where our energy feels drawn, where we feel we can be effective, and that's going to be different for all of us. But you know, I think sometimes in our culture we can very quickly jump to saying, well, you know, there's no point working at a community scale because it's just too small and there's no time and it's too small. For me, that what's so powerful about the story of Liège, and which Javier captures so beautifully in the film, is that story started when they started that project. There would have been lots of people who said, "Oh, it's too small. It's just a community scale thing." That work in Liège has already spread to 6 other cities in Belgium. It's inspiring other people all over the place because the story is a really exciting story and people want to see that happen. So, and then also we need people getting good people into national government, and we need good people into regional government. It's not, we have to do what we feel we have the energy and the drive and the passion to make happen and where we can be most effective. We also need people working in universities. We need people working with young people. We need people working in agriculture. We need people doing this stuff from all directions.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Rob. I can feel resonance in the room.
Can I just add something, Esther?
Yeah.
I really agree with that. There is this is what I tried to say about really resisting to this discussion of what is the strategy, one, you know, like one key. We need really to be systemic in the way that we approach this. And there are profiles for all kinds of work, you know. And I have a story that Rob just made me think of. Before I went to Transition Network, I was a political advisor. So I worked in EU as a political advisor. And after coming to Transition Network, I used to, at the start, the first years, I was developing this concept of ethical lobbying or non-lobbying. We would call it lobbying or unlobbying, and try to apply the principles of transition and permaculture into how you would influence high-level governments. So, and I did some experimenting. And one of the things I've done, it was to approach one of the institutions in the EU, and I answered them because they called me to see what they could do, and we designed the project using all the principles of transition. And we sent, I think, how many? 16 members of the Economic and Social Committee to do a 2 days full immersion in transition initiatives. And the idea is that they would go as close as home as possible, and they would do really immersion, and then they would come back and they would do a report. You know, you had people from 3 groups. They have, in the Economic and Social Committee, they have 3 groups. Group 1 is the employers. The group 2, it's the syndicat. How do you say it? How do you say the groups that defend the rights of
The
workers?
trade unions.
Trade
Trade
union,
unions.
thank you. And group 3, it's all other organizations, NGOs, and so on. So the idea is that they need to have the same number of members, and they went off and they did a full immersion. When they came back, they did a report, and they presented the report to the other 100 whatever number of people in the same committee. And in the end, to tell you, the translators came to me to ask what happened here, because half of the members were crying, people reporting crying, and there was one I will never forget. There was one from the group 1, very conservative, and they would go on and on and on about it is really small. I was there and I was really thinking what they will do, and because it's so small, the small scale, but in the end, the last sentence was, but it might be the only thing that works. You see? So it has been a story, an incredible story that did a lot of impact after that, just because these members professionally so retrieved from the local action went as in their work to the local and see how it feels to make a difference there in nearer their home, their context with their own language, etc. And it made a huge difference. So after that, Rob and I and other people were invited several times to as advisors. This is really incredible. We were always invited as advisors and not as lobbyists, representing
Non,
one
comme
or
des
the other.
lobbyistes à ces réunions.
So it is like a different kind of mindset in which this happened, that the influence that we made was not forcing it. It's not power over, or it was very human, kind, but it's high influence in a high level politics.
Yeah, thank you, Filipa. Yeah, aware of time, and apologies for that. We had some issue with interpretation. And I see many other questions, and I see Claudia's hand, but we're running out of time. I don't know if panelists would be able to stay like 5 more minutes to close properly, but I'm aware of your time as well. Maybe some people have to go.
Also, I can smell my dinner from the next room, and it smells very, very nice.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm afraid we'll have to stop here, and also we have another event after this one, like in about an hour. But we can keep the conversation going in the transition platform. Pame will be sharing some links right now on the Zoom chat. Yeah, I just want to share gratitude. Lots of gratitude for Javier, Filipa, Rob for being with us today. Thank you so much for joining the session or for watching the recording later. If you spread around on socials, you have the links and the tags and everything, the hashtags over there. And if you want to watch the full series and support Hope and the producers of Gato Verde, you have the link on the Zoom chat. Pame will be sharing now, or I can share. I don't know if Pam is still there. She needed to leave. So I'm going to add the links in there. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Pame. And so, yeah, you have there all the links. You can also join and support the transition movement. You have all the links over there on the Zoom chat. Just click and visit the website, join the newsletter, sign up to the transition groups map, and we will be sending tomorrow an email with more details, with more links if you're missing anything. And as I was saying, in about an hour, our colleagues from the Inner Transition and Cultural Transformation Circle are hosting an Indigenous Peoples Day celebration, 7 p.m. UTC. And they want to honor and bring the indigenous voices from the Mapuche, Muisca, and Guarani communities to listen, connect, and co-create a space of remembrance, reverence, and transformation. Watch episode 6. Also, indigenous communities are featured there. And you have also the link to this event on the Zoom chat. Don has also shared. And that's all for today. I'm sorry not everybody could share their questions. We just ran out of time, but the conversation was so inspiring and interesting. Let's hope we can continue the conversation in the transition platform and on the socials and in person, who knows. Thank you also, Pame, for the support, for the tech support, and Aster and Pablo for the interpretation. Thank you also so much. And maybe we can open our mics and say goodbyes, maybe in our languages or however you prefer.
Thanks,
And
everyone.
sorry,
Ciao. Adeus,
okay,
greetings.
bye. I want to thank you very much for organizing this, Esther
Thank
and
you.
Filipa, and just for and you all for existing as part of the transition network. That is an incredible thing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Javier.
Thank you, Javier, and
Gracias por
everyone.
todo.
Thank
Bye
you,
all.
everyone.
Ciao, ciao.
Great job.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Adios,
everyone.
gracias.
Bye. Adios. Bye bye.